2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah.
Everybody good?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't have anything to say today.
Bro, hey, let him be at peace. He is calm today. Let's let this nigga be. Let him be where he at. Let this black man be in his peace.
Go ahead and enjoy your chicken for the next 20 seconds.
If they don't like me, I'ma live my life anywhere. I ain't fucking with her if she ain't watching anime. You know the finest women in the world, you know they cosplay. Pocket full of money, yeah, yeah. Man, I came to play, yeah, yeah. Drop top, yeah, yeah. Drop top, yeah, yeah. All summer, yeah, yeah. I won't stop, yeah, yeah. Beat going crazy, it's a whole lot.
Welcome back to, I was about to say welcome back to K Warriors Corner, and that is not what the hell this is. Nerd on the Street. As you can shut up. I have like way too many shows going on. Okay, it cannot be helped. As you can see, we have a special guest. Y'all already know these two. We have a special guest in
Because she's light skinned, Con. That's what it is. It's crazy. The colorism is nuts.
Colorism is crazy. Oh, y'all.
Sexism too.
Mm-hmm.
Sexism is wild.
And we about to go into. It's crazy because we about to dip into February right now, so it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looking at you, shaking his damn fist right now.
Shaking his fist is crazy. Shaking his fist is hilarious. That
Oh
was
my
creative.
god. Anyway, we have my friend Millers who decided to stop by. You just introduce yourself, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Millers. I cosplay and I'm pretty funny. I'm very silly and goofy. And yeah, that's it. I'm on TikTok and Instagram.
Woo!
Wonderful, wonderful. And then, of course, you guys already know Mr. Con underscore man 510. That's the bay. Go ahead. Go ahead and do your introduction. Con man 510. That's the bay.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I called you out, man. It's in my show. I can't just do shit when I want to.
No, it looks like you was cooking some shit. We're gonna let you go ahead.
Hey man, we just
go ahead, Charlie. Go ahead, Charlie.
Man, you already know what it is, man. It's just the captain. It's the captain. We in the building. Captain Diesel. You can find me anywhere. Captain Diesel's Dojo, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and whatnot. You know, we do all the good things. And as well as that, in addition, I'm a part of the Then and Now podcast. The realest Negroes on the internet. So if you guys want to stop by for any nerd takes, you are more than welcome. Podcast interviews and all that good stuff.
He has to put his chicken down for this one.
Okay.
One more thing.
Y'all know me if you put a comment, KJ_man.5. You know that's the bay. Catch me Universal Base. Catch me on What It Sound Like podcast, where you get your best reviews and interviews. And catch me on Tapping Up Capping, where if you're nerdy, you've seen it, then what's your opinion? Thank you for having me again as a guest. Not special, but as a guest, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then, of course, I know Jew's not here, but he has his One Piece Alliance.
Shout out.
And then, of course, you already know, you guys can follow on the Nerd on the Street Facebook group, the Nerd on the Street for Life Instagram page. I don't know what I was about to say. And then catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, that stuff on Thursdays. And if you guys don't already, you can follow me on TikTok. And the new show that I was talking about earlier, The Comics Doctor, did come out. And the first episode is about Ninja G from Valiant Comics. So if you guys have not seen that one, please go check that one out.
I watched it. It was a good episode.
Was it? I was hoping it was good. I was hoping it was good. I like her character. Her character is fun. But today we are talking about those people who come into nerd spaces who are brand spanking new and decide that they're going to run shit and gatekeep things from the people who have been into the nerd shit, the nerd game for like 5 and 10 plus years. And one conversation in particular I want to bring up to you guys is it actually came from the Blur Approved Entertainment page. And it somehow spilled over to my personal Facebook page, where it was a Naruto conversation that turned into a Dragon Ball Z versus Sailor Moon conversation that turned into I can't stand you new anime niggas because y'all don't know what y'all talking about. I was like, you, me new, or just new people in general, because you could not be calling me new. Man, you ain't seen nothing except Sailor Moon. I will run you down 200 animes right now. Off the top.
This is the debate you were in on a page, not like a video.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I see what happened.
So how do y'all feel about people who actually do that, where they don't know anything about anime outside of the like what people call the basic bitch anime? So Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Dragon Ball Z especially. How do y'all feel about people who like they don't know anything outside of those things, so they assume that you are new because you either don't like those main ones or you don't talk about those main ones and you give them anime outside of that?
So, two things. One, all those anime at one point were more than likely underrated anime until more and more people started talking about them. I think anything good that gets attention is when it becomes mainstream. And if it's almost like a nigga with their favorite underground rapper. Once that rapper hits a hit song and everybody knows about him, now he's a mainstream artist, and now you like him. You don't like mainstream things. So I hate that rhetoric because everything at some point, if it's good, is going to become mainstream. It just depends on the eyes that get put on it. Because you've seen it with JJK before that really hit. Demonslayer, Kaiju number 8 is about to be another one. Solo Leveling had hype before it was animated, so I can't say too much about that. But it is about to be a lot of anime like that are going to be dropping. 2, the gatekeeping discussion has always been tired for me. I've had it a bunch in the basketball space where I've had a lot of conversation with like different NBA fanatics, to where there are some kids who grew up and only really seen majority of Steph Curry play basketball. So like that's their era that they watched. And then you have old heads that like watched ball in the 90s that are like, well, basketball's ruined because in my day we did X, Y, and Z. But then they didn't watch basketball in the 80s or the 70s for real, or even watch it, which it's the whole thing. The gatekeeping thing's always going to go generation by generation, and the one prior is always going to gatekeep the one after the fact, or maybe 2 to the one after the fact. You're never going to be in the situation where somebody's right, because everything in the past is better than new shit apparently, and that's the rotating cycle of conversation that you tend to have with people on the internet. So I tend to just like tune all that shit out, and just if you like the stuff, you like the stuff. If you don't understand what you're talking about, then that's a different conversation. But I don't really enjoy the gatekeeping conversations per se, personally.
I'm trying to agree so hard. Trying to agree. And I'm like, no, wrong. Like,
hey, go ahead.
Hey, I want to hear it. Logically, but I'm just like, no, because like Naruto versus Boruto. But I'm like, okay, outside of that, you're speaking logically. I hear you. I was listening. But I'm still just like, no, the new kids have to shut up, because why are you speaking on something that you haven't watched? Like, I don't like comparisons when they haven't watched the comparison. They're just super hyper focused on the new thing that's out right now. And I'm like, of course you are, because you're like doing the basic stuff. That's how I'm taking with like the gatekeeping thing. So it makes me mad, because I'm like, okay, you're just watching the modern today version, but you haven't watched the first one. You haven't watched the original. So you can't do a fair comparison. I get it. It wouldn't be as hyped as the newer one, and it's not part of your generation and all that. But they'll do these crazy arguments as if they know what they're talking about, and you can't talk to me if you haven't like researched, and like you gotta know what you're talking about. You can't talk to me. So I don't like that, because how are you supposed to argue if you only know one side?
So a question I would have on that point is, do you just tend to have stay away from any conversation about anime that came out before your time? Like, have you ever had a conversation about the original Astro Boy anime when that dropped, or how that anime was to you?
No, I didn't watch it. So I'm like those. I guess so. I wouldn't enter, but I wouldn't be the person like walking around boasting about it either. So
Right.
when there is
Well,
something
see,
new
when it
out,
comes to something like that, I can agree there, because it's like, if I didn't watch it, I'll tell you that I didn't watch it.
yeah.
Because I can't speak on that conversation if I didn't watch something. So, like, the original Astro Boy, actually, we have Astro Boy on DVD, so I'm going to end up having to watch it with that fucking crazy. But when Pluto came out, I was like, okay, Pluto is like like it's a universe inside of the Astro Boy universe. But then it was just like, the debate that was happening in these different anime chats, it wasn't even really a debate. It was, you can't watch this because you didn't watch that. It's like, yes, you can, because it's not exactly the same thing. It's a Astro Boy universe, but it's not Astro Boy because his name's not even Astro Boy. And I'm just like, y'all want to have arguments and gatekeep an anime, but like, the people who have been into the anime game for forever are like, welcome, let's talk. But then new people are like, fuck y'all, get out. And that shit is so weird to me. Con, what do you think? Are you done eating your chicken? You can swallow.
I'd love to hear from OG. What you had to say, OG?
That was actually corn, but yeah. I am an outlier, so it's really hard for me to say what fence I lie on. Everybody knows that I am pro gatekeeping, but not from the perspective that we're tackling the conversation. I don't believe that new niggas can come into the club and be like, hey, these are the new rules. I don't believe in that. But I also don't believe in OGs not allowing the space for people that are not in their generation to open their eyes to new shit. So, like, for example, I've had debates with people where they'll just like neglect and be like, you're not welcome here because you haven't seen X, Y, and Z and that. But at the end of the day, it's like, when I was introduced into nerdom, like I have told Mealers, I'm not sure if I told Charlie, but I was not introduced into it with a group of people, like with like-minded people. I didn't have watch friends, you feel me, like people to watch shows with. So I didn't know what was mainstream and what wasn't. I didn't even know that was a thing when it came to anime. So like, I treated anime like going to the library. I was like, oh, this seems like a nice book, let me try it out, and then I just watch it. You feel what I'm saying? So a lot of the shit that that I was interested in growing up had nothing to do with a lot of the shit that people watch nowadays, and a lot of it wasn't even shonen. You feel what I'm saying? So like, and then the things that I was into, apparently to the anime community, were like low tier. For example, me and Dr. K can also testify to this, because one of the things that we bonded over is that we like Outlaw Star. But apparently, even in the generation that we are a part of, they say that is one of the most trash animes.
Which ever. I have never understood. I have never understood that. I've never understood that.
So this is what I mean by being an outlier. So it's like, yeah, do I believe in gatekeeping? Yes, because I think that you got to keep the integrity of the group that you're supposed to be a part of. Because even though I was like, once I found my group, once I found my people, I was chastised. And it made me want to be like, okay, let me learn more. Okay, let me watch more. Okay, let me woo. Now I'm a part of this conversation. You feel what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I cannot stand new niggas that try to be a part of a conversation and have no basis of what the fuck they're talking about. So it's like, for you to try to make any rules or say what should be and what should not be, when you normally treat this thing more as a merchandise or a status, then it's like, it loses its integrity. Nobody, I mean, and this is coming from OGs as well, like people who've been, like, I'm talking about people who knew Stan Lee and, you know, the OG people, like the originators that been going to Comic-Con since they was, you know what I mean, like way back in the day, once it first opened up. They like, oh, it's not the same no more. Like when people walk by and they come buy shit, they just trying to sell and shit like that. They're trying to have a collection, but it's not because they are a fan of this shit. It's more of a status to show off. Like it's cool to be a nerd now. So I think gatekeeping is important, but within reason. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like you gotta groom the new generation to make sure that the integrity is still intact. But also, with that being said, you have to also open up to be open to change. You know what I'm saying? So I'm cool with talking to new folks that's in the new generation. I just don't like it when they try to come with arrogance as if like if you haven't seen X, Y, and Z, then you must not be one of us. And I feel the same way about the OG niggas too. Because like I said, an outlier. There is plenty of shows. For example, One Piece. I have not finished One Piece. So it's like some niggas like I literally saw a status and I had to say something about it. So a woman had made a status and said, if you're not a One Piece fan or if you haven't caught up with One Piece, can you really call yourself an anime fan?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
You know what it sounds like?
You know how long One Piece is? Like that is, and that takes so much commitment, nigga. It's niggas that be 500, 600, 700 episodes in, and niggas be like, oh, no, you back there? No, you not a One Piece fan. You be like, how many episodes does it take to get in the club? Like, damn.
Hey, you didn't keep that same energy with them black movies just the other day, nigga.
Nah, but you black,
bro.
though.
Here we go.
That's different.
It's not different. It's the literal same.
It is different. It is different because let's be real. Me and Charlie, I'm not sure about Millers, but me and Charlie are in the same boat when it comes to black movies. Okay.
I've watched a lot. I can't watch them all. It is an absorbent amount.
Some of them just do not interest me. They don't interest me at all.
That doesn't count.
You watched Roots?
Roots millions of times.
Damn.
Yeah.
See, I've watched Roots before. It's just like some of them, like when they were talking about what was it? Get Rich or Die Trying.
I haven't seen.
Could not. I've never seen that in my. Never seen Juice before in my life.
No idea what you're talking.
It's here. The only reason that I will see it is because it is on DVD downstairs. One of them I can speak on is Dead Presidents, and another one is CB4 because CB4 is like my favorite.
I've seen CB4.
But my dad took me to the movie theater to see CB4 when I was like a baby.
Lorenz Tate is an honorable mention for when we did actors with the most range.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% him. 100% Lorenz Tate, yeah. But so in the gatekeeping conversation, so when I my very first anime ever was Akira from the 80s. I am not an 80s baby. Fuck you. I'm not an 80s baby. But my dad got it on VHS and we watched it. Now, a lot of people that have seen, as much anime as they have started watching their anime on Toonami.
Yes.
And I have never had an issue with that ever because at one point that was the only way that you could see any anime was unless you had those pirated websites where you could pull them from, or if YouTube, because at one point YouTube had when Sailor Moon got pulled off the air, YouTube had Sailor Moon Stars because they pulled Sailor Moon off the air right before Sailor Moon Stars. YouTube had Sailor Moon Stars on all of the screen in all parts. So if you wanted to see episode 239, you had to watch episode 239 parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and it was all the same one episode. And so there was a status like that. They were like, if you were not watching anime on YouTube in parts, are you a real anime fan? Well, technically, yes. You're just not an OG anime person because you didn't have to do that. Now you have My 9 Anime, you have Crunchyroll, you have Funimation, you have Hulu, Netflix. Like you have all of these places that have all of the stuff that you're trying to watch. And to speak to the thing about One Piece, I went 698 episodes of One Piece and I called it quits because first of all, I was bored. Second of all, I was like, I'm not about to get through this. And they're like, you're not a real anime fan. I am though, because I can sit here and name 698 different animes that I could have watched instead of watching 698 episodes of this.
Exactly.
You know the interesting thing about this whole conversation? And it's a funny thing that I've noticed from having a podcast with an OG and Ethan that's been watching anime since before it was even on relatively mainstream hours on television. And we had this conversation when me and him were working on our Dragon Ball video and like its influence on Black culture. And Dragon Ball alone, when came out, originally it was on like weird ass times that were like 3 o'clock in the morning on syndicated television. So like most people weren't watching it. And to kind of Khan's point, I think a lot of the OGs like that, and a lot of people like myself share a similar story as far as we didn't have a tribe to watch or discuss these things with. So it was just anime to us, or even then before that, it was probably just cartoons to us. So we didn't know what anime was. A lot of this conversation, a lot of this dialogue and discourse has only happened when shit got to the internet and people want to form tribes around this stuff. This is the sociologist in me, and one thing I've learned when I was in college studying for my degree is that human beings within our nature to want to be in some kind of an in group. And it's not enough for us to be in some kind of in group. Our in group has to then be superior to every other in group that exists in that sphere. So there can never just be an anime group. It has to be anime subclass into One Piece fandom, and that One Piece fandom has to be over Dragon Ball fandom, and then it just kind of spurs off from there. And then it can be from Dragon Ball fandom to Goku and Vegeta fandom, and it can go with all kinds of other shit. So it's an endless fucking loop that continues to go on that I think most fans don't care about. It's like that small 5% that's active on the internet in these groups. Because if you look at like this, like let's say the Blurred group in general, there's maybe like 18K in that group, or maybe like 1,800. I'm probably way off. It's either I'm way over or way under. But that in comparison to the entirety of like just Black nerddom is a small percent. And most people don't have these conversations. And when I try to have one like with Ethan, Ethan's like, nigga, you're being weird, bro. I'm just trying to watch the anime. I don't give a fuck what it looks like. I don't give a fuck about what your thoughts on it are. It's like either do I like it or do I not like it. And that's coming from an older dude who was around from like the start of this shit. He's just loving it because there's so much more anime to have, and he likes to have conversations about it. But the whole fandom thing is something new to the internet. And I think people don't. I think people just be bored, bro. Because niggas do not care this much. They do not. On the internet, they do because they be bored at home. But like if you're around people for real, you may have a conversation about like what issues are going on with the anime, but you do not really care about like the gatekeeping conversation in person for real. Because whenever I've been around, it depends. Especially y'all or anyone else, I've never had that conversation about a fandom or gatekeeping around actual people. We talk about how much fun we had watching or how much we hated this anime. We didn't talk about niggas born in Gen Z or Generation Obelisk, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know how the timeline goes on. You don't have those kind of conversations. Those shits are made up on the internet when niggas are bored.
I think it depends because at LA Comic Con, I did hear a few when I walked away from y'all for a little bit. And there was a conversation that was being had like a few booths over. And it was about now there is one anime that I do gatekeep, and I gatekeep it for a reason because I don't want people to be as traumatized. Actually, there's two. I don't want people to be as traumatized as I was watching these two animes in particular. So when people are like, do you have any anime suggestions? Neither one of those come out of my mouth. And it just so happened to be the two animes just so happened to be the topic of conversation that I was listening to. And it was they were cussing each other out. They were like, oh, you're not really a fan because and I was just like, are y'all okay?
The niggas were bored.
Because I promise you it's not that crucial. And the two
were they working the booth?
No. They weren't working the booth. They were just there. They were just standing there because they had just bought something. So they were just standing there and they had started a conversation about characters, like shitty characters. And they happened to be fans of these shitty characters. And it was a lot. I was like, this is the most toxic, I would have throw up conversation that I've ever heard in my life. And I was just, I needed to walk away. So two animes are Berserk from 1997.
Okay.
And Devilman Crybaby.
Oh god. Oh fuck.
So when they were talking about Berserk from 1997, they brought up the 50 clips. Now, that is actually the reason that I gatekeep that anime, because I know a lot of women come to me and ask me for different anime, and they're like, "Oh, I like action," and I'm like, "I give you something else," and I give them anything and everything else. Because once you get to the fifth, and I always recommend to people when they're going to, if they are committed to watching Berserk, I always say the one from 1997, because the newer one I don't feel is that good. But that's just me. I said, but when you get to the part about the fifth eclipse, please just know that it is all trauma. Trigger warning. Don't come back to me and say that I didn't tell you. But as an active recommendation, I gatekeep the fuck out of both of those, because y'all will not come to me and be like, why didn't you tell me not to watch that?
Jesus.
Well, because you're grown and you're going to do whatever you want to. Yeah, I can only tell you that if you are not a fan of sexual assault, don't do it.
Milas, I have a question for you on the topic in question. Why do you think we don't have the same conversation about cartoons, like American created cartoons?
I think we do.
About real fandoms?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Like, even with like SpongeBob is one of my favorite cartoons, but they've kind of like revamped it. It's got like a different flavor today. It's not the SpongeBob, so I'm like, not my president, not my SpongeBob. The new episodes, I can't, I can't watch. But today's kids are eating it up, and I'm like, or they do it a
It's
lot
the
with
same
Cartoon
thing when
Network,
niggas that watch Teen Titans and then the new Teen Titans.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
Teen
like,
Titans
that
Go.
too. I'm that too. I hate Go. I hate it.
I hate Teen Titans Go.
They
Oh my
could've just-
god.
Oh wait, you hate it like completely? Both of them?
Yes.
Why
Teen
do you
Titans Go? Teen Titans Go? Absolutely the fuck not.
Trash,
Teen Titans
trash.
is my shit. Teen
Okay.
Titans Go? Absolutely not.
No. Okay, same page. I thought we were losing each other.
Same
for a
page, same page, same page.
Okay. Oh, it's about to get tricky.
But who you have these conversations with about these problems? Are you having them with the kids watching them today?
Well, yes, but also like my siblings are this new generation. So I'm the oldest at my house. And I'm like, you guys are supposed to follow my lead. Like, what's going on here? Y'all like trash. So it's constant fights in our house, actually. And then they little friends come over, and I gotta fight them too, because we're all super nerdy. So like us all as kids, we was watching Dragon Ball, like the Cell games, because I'm always mad that when the last one of us was born, it interrupted the Cell games, and I was like, come on, like it's on TV, we're catching it, and my mom was all happy to call us, and I was like, 15
Like, no way.
Yeah, and I was
Something
like, okay,
is major happening right now.
Yeah, I was like, he already came out. Like, what's 15 more minutes? It's not like we were there for like the breaching of his head. So my stepdad was like, don't worry, we got it on like the VHS recording thing. When I tell you, no, he didn't. And we had to just miss it, and we had like a skip. Thank God for recaps or whatever, but we had like it fucked up my whole summer, I'm not even gonna lie. So to this day, my brother's grown. He's full grown now, and I'm always like, I hate you. You ruined the Cell, because it's my like that and Boo. I'm like, anyways, we were super big Dragon Ball fans, and it was a lot for me. And I was like, you ruined my whole childhood with your birth. And he's like, no, thank you, older sister. But yeah, so I feel like yes, we do it with cartoons. We do it with everything, because I want to be like, oh, old school, new school for everything across the like. iCarly, I watched that as a kid. There's a new revamped one. There's like Full House and Fuller House. There's what is that one Disney Channel? Whatever.
Raven's Home, and that's a Raven. They do it for that.
I didn't even like the Corey edition of that. So
I didn't either.
Okay, I was like, oh, they could have just left it alone. Raven was good on her own. There's no Chelsea in the new one. She was my favorite. So anytime they try to like revamp something, the new generation likes it, and I'm like, oh, but why?
Yeah,
It's
they even have a new Prowse family, so it's like, yeah. But I mean, they're using the same.
But the new one it's not bad though.
Oh, okay. I was like, is it still using Kyla Pratt or like her daughter?
They have majority of the same.
Yeah, it's Kyla Pratt though. Yeah.
Not all the same. Not all of them are the same. No.
Chelsea's in Raven's Home, by the way. Chelsea's in
in
Raven's Home, or
she
was in the first season. She was in
it.
the first season.
Okay. What else? I think the only thing where I'm not going to fight nobody is like Power Rangers.
Yeah,
Like, they're all good. But Yu-Gi-Oh, I'll fight you. Digimon, I'll fight
immediately.
You.
Where's your cutoff on Yu-Gi-Oh at?
I only like the original. Like I don't like the anything.
You missing out, man. You missing out.
No.
You missing out.
And then Digimon, like
I saw Yu-Gi-Oh! What Zexal or whatever the fuck, and I was like,
that's too far. You went
Who
too far.
is this?
You went too deep.
I started with each, but I hate everyone after him, and I'm just like, no, don't hit the. I'm a huge Yu-Gi fan. So
The only ones, at least Yu-Gi-Oh! Wise, the only ones that are hard are the ones that involved Yu-Gi Mundo to some extent. Like the one directly after the original GX, that was really
I like
good.
GX. Yeah.
And 5Ds was, I don't give a fuck what nobody got to say. 5Ds was one of the better written shows or seasons of. It was probably better written than the original one, honestly. Than the original manga, I will say that. Not just the anime, but like the dark manga where the niggas were before Yu-Gi-Oh! As like Duel Monsters was actually a game when they were just playing random shit. 5Ds is written really well. But I digress.
Pokemon.
Yeah, I heard one that was surprising was Courage the Cowardly Dog versus Flapjack, and I was like,
For like, which one's creepy?
Like, which one is creepier? Which one is weirder? Which one was better written? I was like, first of all, both of those, the people who created either one of them was on crack, so it really doesn't matter.
Not just crack.
Both hella creepy.
But if they wrote the regular show and shit,
they snorted several lines before each meeting before they came up with the script for either one of those shows. So I don't really know which direction you're going with, but like it is a huge argument amongst the younger people about which one it, and I'm just like,
I watched
both of them could traumatize you, so it doesn't really matter.
So did y'all feel like y'all ever had to defend your current cartoons against like their parents or grandparents? They were watching Looney Tunes or watching like the Flintstones.
Yes.
No, I don't. I'm like, you better sit down for your other hip start hurting. Like,
yes.
I'm a bully.
Y'all already know my dad. My dad is very. My
dad
is
you're
very,
lucky. Your father is like an involved, nerdy father. That's dope. I wish I had that.
I've had to try to convince my dad about several different shows. I think we got him on regular show at the same time. I think it took him a few episodes. My brothers got him on Adventure Time. I got him on when Time Squad came out.
So are you considering those shows part of your era though? Like Adventure Time and regular show?
Oh, instead of like or Alpha?
Really?
Yeah, because
how old were you when they came out though? Because I thought you were in like your 20s when those came out.
When did regular show them come out?
Because I was like in middle school when those dropped. Those are like late 2000s and maybe early to mid 2010s. Hold on, I can check real quick.
When did Adventure Time come out?
And I say that for the factor of like, if there's shows that you enjoy.
Yeah, regular show came out when I was a senior in high school.
So where's the cutoff as far as like your generation of of cartoons? Because that goes all the way through when like you're 18. Because regular show came out in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It started in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I was 10 years old when the show came out. So like this is like in my general like generational ballpark. But if you're considering a part of yours and you were like 8, like
because the thing with regular show. So what I've always said about regular show, what was it? Regular show, Adventure Time, Gumball, Steven Universe, and unfortunately Uncle Grandpa. All 5 of them should have been on Adult Swim. No question whatsoever. They should have never hit Cartoon Network as a regular network show. I said when I first watched regular show, and I was like, they got a lot going on in here. And then it was when Mordecai got in a relationship with CJ.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how is this on regular children's TV? Then when Gumball came on, I said, in the first 2 episodes, I said, how the fuck is this on regular children's TV? And it just kept going and going and going. And I was like, all of these need to be on Adult Swim. There is no way that 3 years ago, I'm not even going to say like 5 or 10, 3 years ago, before regular show came out, like 2007, this would have not flown anywhere near regular TV. So
why is that?
If these are like, huh?
Because of how hypersensitive things are now.
Yeah, like how they quite literally canceled Young Justice. One, because Young Justice was too mature to be on Cartoon Network, but also it had too many female fans.
They also canceled all the new generation canceled Pepe Le Pew. You know what I mean? And they
Pepe is wild though.
Good.
Pepe is wild though.
Good.
Pepe, no,
Pepe
look,
is
I'm just
wild.
saying,
Pepe was wild. That was
Pepe
like
is
I'm
wild
just
though.
saying as an evident to the difference of generations. Like for the generation before us, like as you mentioned, the OGs, if that's how we're gonna like frame it, there was a lot of loose comedy back then that was hilarious for them because the comedy back then was much more raunchy and much more in your face and much more blunt. Shout out to Looney Tunes, you know what I'm
Ren and
saying? Like
Stimpy.
Bugs
Ren and
Bunny and
Stimpy was
all that
like
shit.
that.
That shit
Yeah,
was very raunchy. That shit should not have been for kids, but for that generation, it was completely acceptable. So like now moving forward to a new generation, it's not. Now it looks weird. Now it's this and that. You feel what I'm saying? When most of these things are satire, most of these things are cartoons, so it's not real. Nobody's being hurt. Nobody. This is literally making fun of a said type of character. But because of how hypersensitive the new generation is, it's like even if this wasn't in our generation, we gotta go look for these episodes, and it doesn't really affect us. It's like, nah, we're gonna go out our way to cancel said things. So it's like, yeah, these are the type of things that separate that conversation when you're talking about gatekeeping and the conversation between this character, that character, and then as she mentioned, a whole bunch of like women being fans of a show. Now you also talking about them changing the narratives or change shifting the type of sexuality of certain characters, and that really rubs certain old school people the wrong way. Speaking of past all that, gatekeeping has always been a part of the conversation, bro. I don't know about you, but for me, being somebody from Oakland, California, being a black man and being a nerd was not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? I think being a woman and trying to be a nerd, which is more of a male dominated space, was not accepted. It's still a struggle for a lot more women till today.
listen.
That's even for female gamers. Then you got homosexual people, what it makes it hard for them. Then you make it hard for black women to cosplay or black people to cosplay in
Black
general.
people,
It
yeah.
has always been a conversation of gatekeeping. No matter which frame you try to put it in, what conversation or which timeline, there's going to be a conversation of gatekeeping.
The gatekeeping in cosplay is the dumbest shit I have ever seen in my life because there's just oh, that character's not black. Well, that character is not white either, baby girl.
Right. White
But guess what?
passing, but not white.
She gonna be black today.
She gonna be black
I
today,
understand that. I understand those sentiments in the conversation
and
of
not it
like
is
back
in
in the
black.
day, like in Ethan's past generation, where they like had violence perpetrated by them because they were into that shit. Like you were a nerd, you got beat up back in the day. I get from that standpoint because there is violence that's going towards you. But if it's just a situation of like, I honestly at this point I treat gatekeeping almost like cancel culture, to where it's a big conversation, but it really is non-existent. Like niggas can talk about, oh, you're not supposed to be that character because you're black, and then you could also at the same time have thousands of people like and comment on your cosplay because either how great it was, how attractive you are, whatever it may be. 'Cause I'm not into the cosplay world as in depth, so I'm not sure what those commentations look like as much. But I
It
do know
depends.
you like the bigger you get and the more involved and more popular your thing gets, there's going to be an equal amount of negative and positive comments. Those negative comments just stand out more because as human beings, you're more likely to pay attention to the negative comment. You can get 30,000 positive inquiries and whatever you're doing, but that one negative thing's going to stand out and it's going to override all the positive shit to most people. That's why I'm just like, I understand it if like that was the thing where you guys got bullied in past, because I will say in my generation I didn't have to
Oh,
deal
I
with
did.
nerddom. Like we would get like teased for, like in my house I got teased for, really, for real. Like my mom and like family would say weird shit because they were older and didn't really understand the shit, but they let me indulge in it. Like my mom still got me the video games and let me watch the cartoons and the movies and shit like that. She was like, all right, the nigga's weird, but that's what he likes, so he's into that. And then later on, my little brother gets into it heavy, and then they come back. That nigga's watching One Piece and has anime hoodies and shit. I'm like, oh, that's cool, I guess.
Now,
But
if you've ever met my mother, because Khan's met my mom. If you
Yeah,
ever met
I
my mother,
chastised her. I chastised her.
she's I am not a nerd. but she can sit here. She'll quote all day Lord of the Rings, Harry
Really?
Potter. She was sitting downstairs one day and she pulled Dungeons and Dragons, the new one that just came out. She pulled Dungeons and Dragons and Transformers, the new one that came out. Popped them. I was like, okay. And she was watching G.I. Joe the other day, quoting. I was like, I haven't seen G.I. Joe in years, and you sit over here saying line.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in school, it was just.
She married your dad. Like, she has to like nerdy
Oh,
stuff.
she does it. She does it by that. And she says it all the time. Whenever she's on the phone,
she's a closet nerd.
Oh my
when she's on the phone,
Oh.
and we're having like one of those conversations, like we get, Khan's been there. We get super passionate about these conversations around here.
Yeah.
She'll be on the phone and she'll be like, nerd shit. And she's like, I'm going upstairs. All this nerd shit going on downstairs. And I'm like, you are one. Hello. Yeah. But when I was in school, it was, what was I watching? I was watching Sailor Moon. And of course, my brothers, because we're all 2 years apart. So they were in elementary school when I was in middle school. So I was literally by myself. And there was one girl who watched Sailor Moon. And we were sitting there, we were talking, and she was like, oh, you watch Sailor Moon? And we're sitting there talking about the episode. And it was this group of girls and this group of guys that came over to the table. And they were just like, oh, so y'all like that weird Japanese cartoon shit. And I was like, yeah. And they took her food, dumped it on my food, and just threw our trays on the ground. And this one girl was like, we want to fight you so bad. And I was like, for what? Because we like watching anime. Bitch, if you don't get out of my face. Like, it really used to be like that. And when people say they got bullied for it, if they are the same age as me, 100% they got bullied for that shit. Like, beat up, bullied type shit. For absolutely no reason. Like, it was so weird. And only for those exact same people to come into my DMs and be like, I just discovered this anime, and I was wondering, since you've been into anime for a long time, if you could recommend me something.
No.
You're lucky You're lucky I love introducing people to new anime, because, bitch, I would absolutely tell you no if I was not nice. But I love getting people into new anime. So whenever somebody says, oh, anime is not really for me, I'm like, there is at least one anime for everybody. It does not matter what the fuck you're talking about. I was like, if you like doctor shit, I can give you some doctor shit. You like sports, I can give you sports. Right. You like horror, I got a plethora of those, because I love the horror genre. But it's just like, when you start gatekeeping from those who really want to do it, it's weird, because then you're always like, oh, I found this anime and nobody really wants to talk about it. Well, people would if you would tell people about it.
So another question I would have then, what's the bare minimum line to be considered a nerd? Or even just are blurred, or like where's that line? You talked about your mom earlier being a closeted one. And I have one of my mentors is like that too, where she'll be into all this shit and date dudes and like all this shit. She's like, I'm not a nerd. I'm nerd adjacent. I'm like, all right, nigga. All right, cool. Whatever you want to say. Because I think that it plays into a good bit of like the gatekeeping thing of like people, because usually you hear people say, oh, you're not a real nerd because you don't do X, Y, and Z, like you said. Or people that are nerds don't really want to consider themselves that, because now they don't want that stamp of nerddom on their forehead and being looked at like that.
So for me, right? My line is just whatever it is about said thing that you're saying that you are a fan of, that you should know about said thing. It is not really a whole big application form. Like, if you say, oh man, I love Cartoon Network, and then I start talking about Cartoon Network, and you're like, oh, I didn't watch that. Oh, I didn't watch that. You sure? Disney. This movie. It happened on the episode Tapping No Capping. We invited a younger generational girl from a Comic-Con. She said,
and she hadn't seen
and I tried to be nice.
What did she think?
I tried to not gatekeep, and I said, you know what, youngling, come on in. And
we were talking about Disney movie. We talked about
Disney, bro.
We were talking about Disney. Oh my god,
we was talking about like regular Disney movies, like fucking like Cinderella,
Lion King, Beauty and the Beast.
In all fairness, In
And
all
I
fairness,
said,
did she think like the Pixar movies and shit was Disney as well?
No, she
No.
didn't.
Oh,
She
damn.
hadn't seen none of the Pixar movies either.
and so
Damn,
I was
that's
just, she
tough.
eventually left, and I was just like, yeah, she had to go, bro. I had no guilt. She never been back on. You can't, again, even if you are a younger generational person, that's fine. That's cool. You are invited to the table, but you said presented that you was this nerd person or you was a fan of this said fandom, and then when we brought you to the table, you had nothing to contribute, my nigga. So that is where you draw the line and say, hey, nigga, yeah, you didn't pass the test. You didn't, not a nerd, not yet. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be able to know what you're talking about to say that you are a nerd. That's the only fine line. You don't have to say you have to watch so and so, like, oh, you have to watch at least 20 movies or you have to watch at least 20 animes. It's not like that. But if you claim that you have been a fan or watched said thing, then you should be able to represent said thing. That's all. That's my bottom line. But I do
Especially
agree.
if you're claiming you're a Disney nerd, like you, the basic movies at least, you don't even have to
Right.
say that you watched Frozen or Tangled or none of that shit. But for you to say that you are a Disney nerd and I can't talk to you about Lion King or Beauty and the Beast or Pocahontas or Cinderella,
Crazy.
Tarzan,
Crazy.
like none of that stuff. I can't talk to you about none
Like
of that because
it's
you haven't seen it.
literally
Like, what do
like
you mean?
that those are movies that are transcending of generations. That is not a, oh, that was hot back in my time. Lion King, they've been pimping out Lion King since it's been made. For the musicals, for the remakes, for the making more movies on
Broadways,
top of that.
yeah.
Like if you don't know Lion King, you are claiming to be a Disney nerd or a Disney fan. I'm sorry, you don't know it. That's a problem. That's a
So let
problem.
me
Wait,
clarify
wait,
my
wait.
question.
Hold on. Let me
Oh, go
hold
ahead,
that
go ahead.
thought. Hold that thought. I also want to say to the point that you were saying with people that say that they're nerd adjacent or whatever like that. I have this problem with Jew. Jew will always claim that, as you saw on his new banner, a
No, the C
C
class
class
nerd.
nerd.
Mm.
What does that
He is
mean?
not.
Oh.
He is
He
not.
said the C stands for complicated.
Right,
Oh.
but that's just a play on words because he literally classifies himself as a C class nerd. But he's like, oh, let me be witty with it and make it be complicated. It's not complicated. So, with that being said, Jew is extremely nerdier than me when it comes to said things. So, like Power Rangers,
Power
nobody
Rangers. I'm about to say yeah.
Nobody that I know can out talk this nigga when it comes to Power Rangers. This nigga knows the cast. He has met these niggas. He knows the different generations. He knows the power scaling. He knows the everything about. He has the biggest Power Ranger collection I've ever seen in my life. And I've been to Comic Cons and all. And I'm talking about the niggas that sell the shit don't have as much as that nigga do. So with that being said, it's like, no, nigga, you are a full-blooded nerd, nigga. Like, you're not a half breed. You are you are not a hybrid, nigga. But it's one of those it's one of those like uh I guess identity crisis type things because me and Jew both come from the hood. So Jew has a traumatic background and so do I. So therefore he goes, I'm a nerd, but I'm not one of y'all niggas. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, even with that being said, nigga, you can have like being a nerd does not look like a one fit all, nigga. We all come in different sizes, different looks, different places of the earth. Woo woo woo. You feel what I'm saying? And if Juke finally was to just be like 10 toes down and be like both feet in the water, be like, I'm here, it's me. Then a lot of his shit that he trying to do would take off, but I think it's the identity crisis that's holding that nigga back. And there's a lot of people that's like that because same thing with Kaori, not her, but her mama. She is a full-blooded nerd.
My mom is a fucking
Full-blooded.
nerd. My mom is a fucking
But
nerd.
she
Listen,
literally,
when I
she
tell
literally
you,
goes out her way to shy away from doing certain shit because she like, nah, I'm not a nerd like that.
what
But
is
you
it? She got
are.
Power Rangers. She loved the original Power Rangers, right? So Power Rangers, the Herculoids is her favorite. She used to watch Johnny Quest. She sit there, she'll watch He-Man. Then she'll sit there, she has watched the entirety of the MCU without having to ask a question. She'll ask a couple of questions to me or to my dad because that are I can give her the answer without having to Google it. And she Oh, I can't wait to go home and watch Aquaman. Oh, I can't wait to watch. She sat there and watched Shazam 2 and fully enjoyed it. And I'm sitting here like, but you're not a nerd, ma'am. She got Pikachu t-shirts. She has a Pikachu squishy thing. Like, and she'll be like, oh, when you go, oh, she saw a fucking Pikachu like 15-foot plushie, and she was like, oh, I want that. I said, for what? And she was like, I love Pikachu. I love Pokemon. I said, oh, so you do like anime. I'm not a nerd. Leave me alone.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I'll be curious. I want to ask you this question at some point too and get his responses. I'm pretty sure he have a similar response to this. Y'all niggas be scaring off the hoes, essentially. Y'all be scaring the hoes, and I say that, and when I say that, I mean in the extent of, because when I asked the question as far as like what's the bare minimum you need to be considered a nerd, you brought in, oh, you need to make sure you're highly knowledgeable and have watched all these movies in this sphere. Sometimes niggas only want to enjoy this one part of nerddom they like. Like if Jew only wanted to really get into Power Rangers and that's his thing that was important to him, why would he need to have watched or been a part of or be knowledgeable on all these other parts or even watch all the other Power Rangers?
He doesn't.
That's my thing as far as like why can't I be a Disney nerd and only have watched The Lion King and be really knowledgeable on The Lion King and say, okay, maybe I want to get into watching more other stuff, but this is the only thing I've seen.
You are a Lion King. So
thank you. That was my first thought.
When people say that they are like and this is coming from somebody who has been, I have been involved with the Disney nerd people for a long fucking time, because this is where all of my Disney villain conversations come in. So as somebody who has seen how Disney nerds actually act, for you to say that you are a Disney nerd, that is literally that's literally what they say. When you have these conversations, you're saying, oh, I'm a Disney nerd, I've watched all that shit. Okay, cool. Which one do you want to talk about? And they're like, we can talk about any of them. All right, cool. So do you remember? And I'll just bring up something. I'm like, do you remember in Hunchback of Notre Dame when such and such happened? Oh, I haven't seen that one. Okay, we ain't got to talk about that. What about Beauty and the Beast? I haven't seen that. Frozen. I haven't seen that. Tangled. I haven't seen that. Brave. I haven't seen that. Princess and the Frog. I've only seen half of that. What are we about to sit here and talk about? What do you like as a Disney nerd? What do you like? And they're like,
that's a different conversation.
Well, the only thing that I've seen is Atlantis. Okay, yeah. Did you like it? I mean, I watched it like a long time ago.
That part.
Are you a Disney nerd or not?
Right.
Because to call yourself a Disney nerd, it means that you are in here, like you know this, like this is the stuff that you want to talk about. If you are simply just a fan of Disney, that's different. Because you've seen Beauty and the Beast a long time ago. You saw Cinderella 1 or 2 times. You saw Pocahontas 2. You watched Toy Story. You like A Bug's Life. But it's not like you don't. For me, like the bare minimum for you to say, like, for me, like for you to be a nerd, it's just like you've seen the stuff and you enjoy talking about it.
So this is a different conversation than what I was having. Those people are lying. I'm not talking about people that say, oh, I'm a fan of all this shit. I've seen all this shit. They're blatantly lying at that point. They want to be a part of it because they want to be a part of something. I'm talking about individuals that are either new to this field or have been a fan of this one part of this field. And it's like, oh, I like Disney stuff. Now, if they have been around the groups or whatever else, because that was for me for a minute. When I got introduced into the blurred sphere, I had seen all these things, but didn't know titles or lingo until I got into the blurred group with Otis and them, and I just started watching how the conversations, how
people talk,
and I'm like, damn, y'all niggas take this shit seriously.
I mean, I think there are some people who are deep in, like the people who are deep in it and the people who are new into it. Like when you get into a fandom or like a nerd group or something like that, and just to use the Disney for example, when people are new to Disney, one, that's a shock to me because what kind of childhood did you have? But you know, whatever. But when you say that you're new to Disney, I'm absolutely 100% fine with that because these Disney people are fucking crazy. So I'll be like, have you seen such and such? Oh, you should totally watch it. And then, then once they start like watching all of these things and then they get more into it and deeper into it. Then they're into the shows, and then they're into getting the merchandise, and then they're into this, that, and the other. And they have become an actual this nerd in this group from when they were just coming in being a fan.
Okay, so
and then, like, anime is the same way too. Like, you could be a fan of an anime, right? But like, I'm a fan of Fire Force. I had no fucking idea what the fuck the Japanese name for Fire Force was, or that it even had one, until Ray asked me how to say it. I had to look it up. But if I were to go into a conversation with the Fire Force nerddom, I would not be able to have a conversation with them, because I'm only a fan of it. I seen most of it. I could not give you characters' names. I couldn't give you their Japanese names. I couldn't give you like what happened in season 2, episode 3 at 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Like, that's a little bit too much for me. But I enjoy the conversations that occur, because then I can become like a Fire Force nerd person, because I'm around those people and I'm getting into that and getting like, but like, I think the bare minimum is being a fan.
So let me capitalize on what you just said, right? Neelix, if you have something to say, let me know, because I wasn't sure if you want to chime in. You good? Okay. So let me tell you about your soft ass generation.
Go ahead, OG. Talk to me, OG.
Yo generation, bro, pisses me the fuck. They really scuff my chucks, bro. Like, they really
grind your gears.
Grind your gears.
Nah, they
tighten your overalls,
bro. They make my balls itch. Well, let me tell you why. Inclusion fucks y'all up. Inclusion fucked y'all up. When we was growing up, everything the fuck that y'all complain about was normalized. Everybody being their own little, like, when you watch an old school high school movie, everybody is at a certain table at the high school. Like, what do we always talk about? Mean Girls. Everybody had their fucking club for a reason.
Yeah, their clique.
You can't sit with us, nigga. You can't sit with us. There is a guideline and there is rules to this shit. Niggas just want to be a part of it to be like, oh, accept me. That is not how we grew up, nigga. And that's not how the world works. But your generation want to be coddled so fucking bad. And I fucking hate that for y'all. Past all that, there is a difference between gatekeeping and being an elitist. Gatekeeping is keeping the integrity of this is what we as a collective stand for. Being an elitist is being an asshole, like I gave you from an example. When you are a part of One Piece, or say that you are a fan of One Piece, and like I said, I have watched 500, 600, 700 episodes. That's a lot of fucking episodes. And then for elitists to say you're not a fan because you're not all the way up to Wano, you're not all the way up to the point where we're about to do this new transformation, that's being elitist. That's not gatekeeping. There's a difference. But because your generation is so fucking soft, they take any form of rejection as, oh, well, this shit is toxic. This is what this shit is built off of, nigga. Being a nerd was not a popular thing. It was not for everybody. You had to know what the fuck you was talking about to be at the table, nigga. And if you didn't know what you was talking about, you couldn't sit, nigga. It's the same thing as sitting at the grown folks table. When grown folks talk about grown folks shit and you trying to be a kid in the conversation, they be like, get the fuck out of grown folks business. It's the same conversation, bro. It's not like it's a toxic thing to want to keep the integrity of something that you love. If you love something, you're going to protect it. And when the problem with inclusion is that you have all these different people who then ruin the integrity and how people feel about it, because now the conversation's changed. Now you can't have the chest ties and the shit like that you used to have with your people that actually knew what the fuck they was talking about. It's a somewhat, and you know, might be a controversial point, somewhat of the toxicity is what makes these things popular. If it wasn't for Sailor Moon fans and Dragon Ball Z fans, that whole Sailor Moon versus Goku thing would have never happened. Niggas wouldn't even be talking about Sailor Moon in this new generation because it was so fucking long ago. But because that was a scaling thing and people were like, I'm a real deep hardcore Sailor Moon fan, and DBZ fans like, nobody can be Goku. Well, nigga, and now we have memes and fucking Twitters and beefs that happen and make these things more popular and bring it more money. But when you bring new niggas to this conversation that know nothing about the shit, you don't bring nothing to the table, nigga.
Now, some of that I can agree. Some of it is healthy arguments, and then there are some people who are just downright toxic. Because when you can have these conversations and like, and what I always say is, first of all, I don't argue with these niggas. Number one. Number two, if I can sit here and say, like, because I keep up with the Dragon Ball Z manga, right? But there are men who do not keep up with Sailor Moon manga. So their information is always fucking outdated. And it takes me having to say all of these things. And they're like, they didn't show that in the show. No, they did not. You want to know why? Because the show got canceled. Because moms were very upset because the girl was naked and chick was making out with her cousin. That's not anybody's fault. But in her manga, this is explained. And they're like, well, I ain't read the manga. I know, because we're having this conversation. And one-sided conversations are where it goes wrong. If you can have a conversation in a nerd group where it is a healthy conversation and everybody's keeping up with everything else, then when newer people come in who are also doing the same, because a lot of newer people are manga first before they hit anime. And then there are some people who are anime only. And some people need to be gate kept. And those would be the people who are manga first. Because they come in and they're like, oh, you like that character? Not for long. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up. People are trying to have a good time in here. And that is where sometimes I am absolutely for the gatekeeping. If you are manga first and manga only, get the fuck out. Because there are people in here who are anime only who want to enjoy the anime, and you are ruining it for people. People who ruin conversations need to be kept away. That is all I've ever thought about the gatekeeping situation. Is if you are here to ruin the conversation, get out. I don't care if you're new.
Trap card.
I don't care if you're new. I have no problem if you're new and you want to get into these anime conversations and you're having fun with the conversations and you're contributing to the conversations. But if you're not coming into the conversation to contribute, you're only coming in to spoil, you're only coming in to start an argument, you're only coming in to basically, you're essentially ruining the conversation, and it's like turning people away from either the group, the conversation, or that anime or whatever, what have you. Go away. But go ahead
Ladies
with the
and
trap card.
We got him.
Go ahead with the damn trap card.
Millers, I want to ask you first because I feel like Mean Girls was brought into conversation. Could you
hit him with a smooth jazz radio voice, nigga? Hit him with it.
Could you do me a favor and remind me when it comes to the plot of
baby,
Mean Girls?
Baby, hold on, baby.
Were they? Remind me when it comes to the plot of that film. Was one of the overarching subplots and main themes of that film showing the toxicity of those in groups and those in classes, right? Because this person wanted to be a part of a class that wasn't what she thought it was,
the
right?
plastics, yes.
Yeah, the plastics.
Okay, right. So let me tell you something about these old niggas real quick.
It could be.
The thing that is very funny to me is that when we talk about what was normalized and what we grew up doing, it almost sounds as though that you're saying that everything that was normalized was a positive thing. Because keep in mind, it was very normalized for people to watch Dumbo and laugh at the Jim Crows.
Bro, ew.
Keep in mind that throughout a lot of Disney, there's a lot of blatant racism, sexism, misogyny, and overall this bad shit and all. And that was normalized. So now you can look back as a grown man and you can see these things like, oh, that was kind of fucked up. And this probably shouldn't be okay. Now, the conversation then goes from, Is this not fucked? This is fucked up. Are we going to continue to digest this stuff and continue to let future generations digest this stuff? Now, I'm not saying these things need to be like taken down and like dismantled and thrown away in any extent, but you can have a conversation about why this thing isn't okay. Because again, racism blatantly in your cartoons probably isn't a good thing. So when you have that conversation about normalizing things, we can analyze things from the past and admit that they weren't good. Oh, so we'll leave that there when it comes to these old niggas for one. That's exhibit A. Exhibit B comes into where when it comes to just the general term of gatekeeping, right? Breaking down the word gatekeeping, you have somebody that's monitoring the gate and you're keeping certain people from coming in and you're allowing certain people in. Now, my question from earlier had a lot to do with the question of how do we determine who we're letting in and out? Now, to Kaori's point, if it's just the factor of are you making this environment that people are trying to enjoy toxic and not enjoyable, I get that because you're disturbing peace in a place where people are having fun and joy and it's cultivating a lot of things. Now, if the bare minimum thing is, oh, well, you don't have a certain amount of information, so we're not going to allow you in here. That then sounds very hypocritical because we went to the whole concept of manga readers and anime watchers. And manga readers talking to people about, oh, why don't you just read the manga? Well, nigga, why can I just enjoy this without having to know all this other stuff? It sounds very synonymous to me. Is it not? Like, it sounds very similar as far as somebody having a lot more information than the other person and then trying to demean this person for not having the same amount of information. That's the crux of my like weirdness when it comes to the gatekeeping argument, is that gatekeeping is only ever okay until you're the one being pushed out of the gate. Because 9 times out of 10, when I was introduced into these nerd groups and would see a lot of these conversations, especially when I would start partaking in these conversations, because niggas definitely would scare me out of these conversations. I'm like, these niggas are way too serious about this shit. They called me a bitch for saying I didn't like this Batman. The thing would go. This is usually how the conversations would go. Hey man, I really enjoyed this issue of Batman. I thought this was a great thing. I thought this was a bad thing. Oh, that's cool. I did too. But I really didn't enjoy this thing. Huh? You didn't enjoy this thing that I enjoyed in the same way that I enjoyed it? Nigga, are you a real fan? How old are you? Because you can't be my age and not enjoy this thing.
Yes.
See no further than the recent post on my Instagram that Kayla was a part of, where she adamantly showed her dislike for the characters of Batman and Superman. And what did niggas go to do as soon as it showed? Oh, this girl has no idea what she's talking about. Yeah. She's just chatting. She must use a styrofoam plastic dildo to masturbate with. Because niggas did get that weird. Niggas are very weird.
Yes, they did. It was a lot.
So
I didn't say nothing either because I could have. I said, let me not get on Charlie's post and act an ass. I said, one, because I don't argue with these niggas.
Actually, it's silicone.
and his name is Pharaoh, so you need to relax.
And let me further continue the conversation. When it comes to that, I know Kaori's her track record, her resume, and her credentials when it comes to this nerd shit, especially when it came to her opinions on Batman and Superman. She is very qualified and has the resume to do so, to have the sentiment that she has. But because she didn't enjoy these things in the same way that these other niggas enjoyed them, she is now not qualified, now not allowed to be a part, and thus gate kept from this conversation, or at least she should be in their eyes. All this spiel and entertainment I've just provided I say all that to say, gatekeeping is really annoying because niggas only are ever okay with gatekeeping until they're the ones being gatekept from a conversation. Because there's no universal agreement on gatekeeping. There's no universal agreement on nerd rules in general because this shit really wasn't on the internet predominantly for a very long time. Niggas that were fans of all this stuff got together on the internet within the last 20 years and started having this discourse and started trying to establish rules. But because people, not just black people, but people in general aren't a monolith and we have different things that we enjoy and different perspectives on things, there's no set criteria on what these things are. And thus is my disagreement when it comes to gatekeeping, because there's no set fucking criteria and it changes from conversation to conversation and person to person.
I agree.
Can you play the trap card sound for me real quick?
Go ahead. What do you want to say, Craig?
Oh, wait,
Colin?
I need you to
Hey,
play that trap card
You
sound
want
for me.
to play the trap card sound?
Nigga, that's my soundboard. The fuck?
Come on, share it. Don't
The fuck,
gatekeep
nigga?
from me. Don't gatekeep it.
You triggered
Yeah,
my
do it.
card.
Please go ahead. Go ahead, sir. I don't want you to scuff your Stacey Adams.
No.
Go ahead, my sir. Go ahead, good sir.
Actually, they alligators. You know what I'm saying? Anyways,
The finest leather.
right. All right. So look. To your point, you did make some points, right? Now, you fell into my trap card. When
Go ahead.
I said earlier, I said low key, I said controversial point, the toxicity and what happens in some of these groups is what makes it more popular. Kaori, you let me know, yes or no. Has the toxicity around your page and around your takes popularized your views?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
That's interesting. So, like I said, in order to be a part of these groups, you have to know what the fuck you talking about. Because has somebody else had the takes that Kaori does without her knowledge, then yes, she will be weed out the fucking gate. But because she a soldier, nigga, she like, nah, nigga, what's happening? All soldiers on deck, nigga. We about to have a shootout. And then she'll come, go into the garage, get the fucking comic books. Hey, nigga, what's that shit you was talking about? Oh shit, I guess I was wrong. Yeah, nigga, yeah, bitch ass nigga. So with that being said, bro, it's still gatekeeping for a reason. Because from an outside perspective, if you want to look at it from a different point of view, she in her own way is gatekeeping. Because her in her mind with her knowledge is saying, y'all niggas don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. Y'all just fans. I know what the fuck I'm actually talking about. As she said, there's a difference of being a fan of something or being a nerd of something. And she's a nerd of something. So, in the same thing, what you're saying about manga readers and the same thing you're saying about anime onlys, those are separated groups. We are all a fan of this one umbrella thing, but these niggas sit on this side of the table because they prefer the manga, and then these niggas sit on this side of the table because they prefer the anime. And then sometimes, like I said, at the lunchroom, nigga, this group sometimes funk with this group, nigga. And sometimes you in this group go, hey, nigga, we tired of y'all shit. Stop doing this shit. And they go, look, we tired of y'all shit, niggas. Catch up, nigga. So these are normalized things that happen inside the nerd group that soft niggas cannot understand because they want to be a part of something versus other people who understand the culture of the situation and they accept it, and it makes it exciting, and it makes it like, oh, this makes me more 10 toes about which group I fucking stand with. Now, past all that, right? I have been in your shoes. I have been chastised by OGs and shit like that and been like, oh, I don't agree with your point of view. And I had to stand my whole to shit, even BMT's known it. And I embarrassed a nigga online and was like, nope, you're wrong about this and da. But talking about the conversation of inclusion, there is shout out to the Nerdgasms of Las Vegas. I don't think I said the title necessarily correctly, but it's Nerdgasm Las Vegas. They did an episode on inclusion and saying that back in their time, it didn't matter about what the ethnicity of the character was. It shouldn't have mattered that this person had to be black or this person had to be this. They were just written characters, and at their time, they could appreciate it. And they actually look down on our generation because we want to see ourselves in the character so fucking bad. And they said that that's the problem with us. Now, me being a nigga that comes from the generation that they're talking about, I was able to be like, nah, nigga, you're wrong. You feel what I'm saying? Because even if that was normalized during your time, it wasn't normalized for everybody during your time. Which is why when people were like Jackie Robinson, when he was finally playing baseball, even niggas that was not black, that was white, like, nah, I wanna bat like Jackie. You know what I'm saying? Like there are multiple examples I can go to where it was like these people broke the status quo. And like I said earlier in the conversation, I am not saying that rape and all these different conversations of, oh, these things were normalized and that's okay. That's not what I said. I said People have to research and go back and watch those old shits to be like, oh, this was a problem. We never talked about that. We're talking about the evolution of things. Like we was talking about, we said Teen Titans versus Teen Titans Go. This versus that. We're not talking, we can't, a new nigga to the conversation that grew up on Teen Titan Go cannot tell me about Teen Titans, nigga. That was not your generation. Now, if you want to talk about Teen Titans Go, for sure, that's cool. But to go out your way to try to cancel something that your generation is not even affected by is crazy. And that's what we mean by there are certain people that cannot be a part of the conversation because then they ruin things. That was a childhood memory for some people that they fully enjoy. And now a new nigga that had nothing to do with that, did not grow on that, is going out their way to cancel something that does not affect them. So yes, were these things bad? Yes, to a new generation that did not grow up in a normalized society where it was normal. That shit was back then. It does not bother you. You are now in your generation. Are you at the table? Yes, but you should be talking about what is at, where are we doing currently? What are we talking about currently? And then we build that bridge between new and old, like Kaori said with her dad. She is now bringing him into the new cartoons. You feel what I'm saying? I did not sit here and say that the shit that you brought up with, the R word is a bad word. You ain't supposed to say it. But those kind of things are not acceptable.
Correct. I bring it up.
You did.
No, you
said
she did.
Oh,
I didn't.
Brought it up. Okay, well, yeah. With those things, no, unacceptable. But we are now in a new generation, so you should stay in tune to what the new generation is up to. And all we're saying is that even if you're a fan of all these different things, even if you research and all, is that nigga, if you're gonna be a fan of something, then you should know what you're talking about. That's it. You brought up a conversation about manga readers versus anime niggas. That's not the same conversation because nigga, I don't read manga. You cannot hold.
No, I brought that up. I brought that up because there are like I
said a lot right now.
No,
like I was saying in the conversation. Because I brought it up.
You brought it up, but he capitalized off of it when he said the trap card. And so I'm saying like these are two different conversations because I claim that if I'm going to hold you to a standard, it is the standard that you claim to be. I am a fan of this, or I am a nerd of this. So if I say that I'm an anime only watcher and I ask you what anime you watching and then you don't know what the fuck you talking about, then you're not an anime watcher, nigga. And if a manga nigga tried to say, well, did you watch this? And it's way later on where the anime's not even caught up, then that doesn't make sense. You cannot kick me out of a group that I never claimed to be a part of. We're only holding niggas to the standard that they say that they are. It's nothing toxic with that, bro.
Mealers, do you have any?
Everything is proceeding as I am proceeding.
I'm sick.
Go ahead,
it is fucking sick.
No, I'm listening to you guys, and I'm just like, oh, I must have been the bully at my school.
I mean, and like I said, I think some gatekeeping is okay, especially like I said with the manga versus the anime, because there are some people who do both. Mm-hmm. They read the manga, but they want to see the anime. Like with Solo Leveling, I read that whole entire thing, but I've been waiting to see it animated so long. But I'm not about to go to somebody who I know for a fact is an anime only person and be like, huh, you like him? Well, guess what? Like, because that happened all through Attack on Titan. That happened through JJK. We aren't even into season 2 yet. And there was already, oh my God, chapter 237. I can't believe it. You guys are going to be so upset. Why would you tell me that? Yes. I haven't even been traumatized yet for the second season. And you're already sitting here talking about okay, well, if you like so-and-so, you're about to be real hurt. Stop that. Because there's no point in you doing that other than the fact that you're going to turn away people from the anime because now they've latched onto these characters because they're anime only. They've latched onto these characters and they're having these healthy conversations about these characters in their own little circle about this anime specifically. Of course, there's going to be people coming in, can he beat Goku and all this other dumb shit, but that's normal. But they're having these like really good conversations and here comes somebody who is a manga only person and is like, this is what's about to happen. Now they don't want to watch the anime anymore, and that's how you lose fans, and that's how you lose like people from that nerdom. Like a little bit of toxicity is cool because competition is healthy, but baby, Y'all be fucking it up. And I'm just like, can you please go away for a minute? That's all I ask.
Can you give me an example of something that a newer generation was trying to outright destroy from a prior generation as far as content goes?
Dragon Ball Z.
They're trying to they're trying to cancel
Dragon
and get
Ball
rid of
Z.
it altogether.
Dragon Ball Z. There is
In
a
what
new
way?
wave of niggas, of new soft baby shit niggas that now, because of we have new popular anime where they're like, Dragon Ball Z wasn't actually all that. It's like the new generation of rappers where this is gonna trigger Millers, but don't take this personally.
Oh my god.
It's like the new generation of people who like rap, like Kanye West, who will say Tupac really wasn't all that as a rapper. But people during that generation, he was the greatest of all fucking time. People of my generation, for a lot of niggas, and you know this because you watched Dragon Ball Z and you did an episode of how many niggas was influenced by Dragon Ball Z. So you cannot deny. There are a new generation of niggas that are trying to ruin Dragon Ball Z, who are literally saying that it's poor writing, it's not a good anime, the animation's terrible, and they continuously go out their way
to
downgrade,
we'll get to you.
downgrade Dragon Ball Z, and that is a new generational thing.
Kiori, do you want to, Kiori, remind the audience? Oh, I'm not gonna ask you to say how old you are. Remind the audience your sentiments on Dragon Ball. How do you feel about Dragon Ball Z?
I hate Dragon Ball Z so much, and I have for years. I have lately said, and this is after the Cell Saga. So this is after the Cell Saga for me, that the writing in Dragon Ball Z is absolute trash. There is no plot. There is no character development outside of Goku and Vegeta. That shit is called the Goku Show featuring them niggas. Because it's just, I felt like that ever since I started watching more and more and more anime past Dragon Ball Z, past Outlaw Star, past Cowboy Bebop. Once the Cell Saga was finished, Dragon Ball Z was finished for me. Because I could not I was just like, it's too repetitive and I cannot even tell you what the plot is anymore.
So hold that thought. So, Con, your birthday twin, big Virgo energy, your boy Otis East. Big O, right? Hey, would you say you respect his knowledge of anime and manga?
His knowledge, yes.
His extensive knowledge that knows what he's talking about 9 times out of 10?
His likes and dislikes, fuck no.
Okay, so keep in mind, I just brought up 2 niggas from your generation who you have conversations with about this stuff on a daily basis. Hold on. Let me get there. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me get it off. Let me cook.
You're not cooking.
Anyway, I brought forward 2 people in your generation alone that are the exact same age as you. One nigga, the exact same birthday as you.
Correct.
Shared a dislike for a thing that you said was really influential, and I will agree. From me doing extensive research on a video essay I did, it was very influential to a lot of people. I will also, I'll bring up something I'll bring up something that a lot of people may also understand. I already mentioned basketball similarly earlier. A big discourse among basketball fans in regards to like certain players not being as good as other players, championship agreements, championship conversations, things like that are what's valued in a player's career. These conversations, these talking points, we didn't make up. We get these things from people from your generation because we don't know what, like I said before, people my age don't know what the fuck what terminology is, what these sentiments are on these things. We watch these things in the freedom of not being bullied for them because I didn't have to worry about that shit growing up because it was cool to like anime when I was growing up. So the terminology of this thing being mid, this thing being trash, the animation style of this thing, we're getting that information from your generation.
Yeah.
Now, because you aren't a monolith and all of you don't like the same thing, you're gonna have that, but you're pointing all that negativity in one direction and not looking at who you're surrounded by and your peers. Because your peers are teaching us where to go. We're not making this shit up. We're not. It's not true.
That's not
true. So
I
can agree. Hold on, before you start, I can agree with that because my cousin, for example, I raised this little boy, essentially. This is my baby. Tavon is now into Naruto and he is now into Dragon Ball Z. He's watching them both at the same time. And because he's heard me speak so highly of Naruto, he has all of these like terms that I use when I describe Naruto characters and things like that. And so he was actually having a conversation with one of our other cousins who is also into anime, who is about the same age as Charlie. And he's just having this, mind you, Tavon is like 12. Maybe he's like 12. And Jaquez is same age as Charlie. And he's like, all I heard was, I'm just saying Dragon Ball Z is mid because da 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 da. And I sat there and watched it, and the plot is so, and he just had all of these things, and I'm sitting here like, he had to have been listening to me because Jaquez has never described Dragon Ball Z like that. Jaquez fucking loves Dragon Ball Z. But when Tavon, a 12-year-old, is sitting here making these points to him, he's like, I see where you're coming from. Who the hell you talk to? Cousin Christina? Of course it was me. So I can agree that a lot of times when these conversations are happening, because I heard mid growing up all the fucking time. Every time I was watching something, I heard mid all the time. But of course, when my brothers and stuff were growing up, if they heard mid, it came from me. It didn't come from them. Like they're the people that they were around. It came from me or people who were older than them. And then the younger people then also started saying something was mid.
And this circles back to your original point.
But, you know, it came back with the younger generation bringing it back. But it did things like the way that the younger generation does view certain things does come from us.
It circles back to your original point, to your young lady that was on your show that was a Diz nerd or proclaimed herself as a Diz nerd. People in this generation and young people in general, I'm going to just say this generation because it happened in your generation as well, which almost called her by her government name, which Kaori just mentioned as well. You hear these terms and terminology and lingo from the older generation who you admire, whether it be an older brother, an older cousin, uncle, auntie, whatever it is, and you start saying these things. You don't understand what these things mean yet, but you're saying them because you want to feel included in a part of the club. Now, some people do their due diligence and go back and research and find out what these things mean. Other people, because they want to still feel included and be a part of something, like I just mentioned earlier with human beings and wanted to be in an in-group, they lie to be a part of this thing. When it comes to the Disney lady that you were talking about, I guarantee you she heard that terminology around somewhere, thought she knew what it meant, and when she met y'all, she was like, oh, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So I'm crazy. So when I say all these things, all the whole crux of this conversation, which you've agreed with to this point, as far as her ushering her dad in a new animation and her dad bringing her into older shit, the gatekeeping shit should be null and void because you should be teaching people what the right things are or what these conversations are. When you leave people alone in the dark and expect niggas to just know shit, therein lies the problem. If you're not doing it, if you're not being an active participant in the development and the growth of the next generation of nerds, you don't need to say shit about it. I'm just keeping it about. That's how I feel about it when the old niggas. If you're not being a part of the culture and you're just living in the past and what you enjoy in your own little bubble, you have no conversation on where the current state of culture is because you didn't have any hand in molding it. You just left niggas to be. And that's in rap, that's in basketball, that's whatever it is. If you weren't an active participant in the conversation, don't jump in now because you don't like what the narrative is now.
I agree with that. Now, let me circle back to what we was just talking about. Otis and Kaori. Okay. Now, Mr. Lelouch V, the nemesis of all nemesis, and you know this because you have a nickname for this nigga. And you know what the nickname is. You have a lot of nicknames for this nigga. Now, Kaori, people of the court, even though you and Otis do agree on Dragon Ball Z and being mid, right? There is a there.
I'm just being mid. I think it's terrible.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, that's fine. Now, somebody I know named Otis likes mecha animes. Hey, or how do you feel about mecha animes?
There is maybe a handful I can count on. I don't even think I can count on both hands how many mech animes I like because I don't like them.
Very interesting. Now, these are still same niggas a part of the same generation. You can be a part of the same generation and have differences of opinions. My point is that the whole Dragon Ball Z being ass or mid did not happen until your generation. That's my conversation.
That's not making
In
sense.
my generation, bro, Dragon Ball Z was the temple
That's
of
true.
all
That's true.
animes, bro.
I mean, that's true for a specific group of people. Yes.
No, it's true for the majority of people. I'm talking about the masses of the people in our generation. That's what
Which
I'm
were a
saying.
specific group of people. It's a specific group of people who only like shonen anime.
And you
Okay,
niggas
that's
were
fine.
also inside of your own bubble because
That's
you were on the
fine,
internet
but-
like that.
Mhm.
Huh?
You were also inside of your own local bubble because you weren't on the internet like that. You weren't having these conversations with people worldwide. It was people in your neighborhood.
Fine, but it's literally still a anime that's still You did a whole episode, like I said.
Yes, that's why I'm
something
telling
that
you. Go ahead.
The girl that you know has literally built a whole content just on talking about Dragon Ball Z.
Mhm.
So you cannot take away from the fact that this has been a anime that has shaped our whole generation, regardless if there's 1, 2, 3s, even if there's hundreds of people who do not like this anime. For the masses, there were a fuck ton of people who did. So, like I
And
said,
nobody's taking that away.
Yeah, Con, I'm not saying that. My point was you're directing all that malice towards one generation when the conversation is being had amongst people of your generation. It's not just these people that developed this opinion of this thing. The opinion has been around since it came out. People, when something comes out, something can be popular. JJK is popular now, but there are people on the internet who do not like JJK. They think it's overly complicated and that it's fucking pretentious as fuck. And it's popular right now. It's taking the world by storm, but there's a huge number of people, but in the grand scheme of the masses that enjoy it, they don't enjoy it, and they're part of this generation now.
But that's the
in
same thing.
20 years,
when
niggas are saying it's mid. Yeah, in 20 years, when niggas are saying that it's mid, I'm not then going to say, oh, y'all niggas making that shit up. Nobody was saying that shit beforehand. No, because there were niggas saying it then.
I never said
they were the minority of people.
But so what you're saying is, so basically what he's saying is, just because you didn't hear it as part of the generation that we were part of, just because you didn't hear it doesn't mean that it wasn't said. Nobody's taking away the influence of Dragon Ball Z, because Dragon Ball Z influenced a lot of shit. But Dragon Ball Z, I mean, Astro Boy influenced a lot of shit too. So I mean, there are animes that influence other animes that influence other animes. And so nobody's taking away from like the OG animes influencing anything. That's fine. However, something can be influential and still in and of itself be bad.
Nigga, this shit, Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. That original trilogy, from the actors themselves, from the scripts, said that shit was ass. Harrison Ford has publicly said, this script is terrible. And I told fucking George Lucas I didn't want to do this shit. I tried to make him read his own script. Mark Hamill, when he was young on national television, was like, yeah, these scripts are ass. And they were very influential on the whole genre of sci-fi going forward. The films are boring. Not gonna lie to you. They're great for their time, but if you watch them now, nigga, you'll be bored.
Watching right now, they are bored. They're
you're gonna be bored. It can be influential and still be bad, and that narrative was around when it came out from the people that were a part of it. They're not saying, oh, the new generation that loves the prequels, them niggas don't know what they're talking about. Them niggas are inventing all the negativity about. No, nigga, that's not how that works. That's not how human beings work. Something always comes from something prior. Nothing's new under the sun when it comes to these narratives and conversations. It's always trickling down from something prior.
And to the point about like, things being popular, like, y'all already know how I feel about One Piece. One Piece is incredibly popular. Fuck that goddamn show. I hate that fucking show more than I've hated it. More than I hate Dragon Ball Z, do I hate One Piece?
But see, the difference with One Piece is that the conversation of One Piece being the animation was terrible. The show's too fucking long and all that. That has been a conversation that has been since it was created. Dragon Ball Z,
but the Dragon Ball Z one has also been a conversation because there were and I say that with people who are not shonen watchers. So people who are into rom-com anime, people who only liked horror anime, because there were horror animes around that time as well. People who were not shonen watchers, and they decided because Dragon Ball Z was so popular and they wanted to be a part of that conversation that they were going to watch it. And the conversation that happened after that was, this show is ass. All they do is scream and holler for 30 minutes. It takes them 7 episodes to get to the one fight that started in episode 4. And the writing sucks. And then it's just been a whole, like, what is the plot? Blah, 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 blah. If the story is not about Goku, Why is he there so much? Shit like that. I have heard the conversations for years, and up until the Cell Saga, I defended Dragon Ball Z with my life. And I was just like, y'all have no clue what you're talking about. If you watch it, this is the plot. Da, 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 da. After the Cell Saga, I couldn't even do it no more because I was like, what the fuck is going on?
So even to that point, so to her point, even her NO that you're talking about grew up watching the shit. Even O grew up watching the shit. Even if it was to a certain point, it was a loved anime. And like I said, the opinion, even if it's some niggas from our generation, majority of it is the niggas that don't want to go into watching. For the same niggas that don't want to watch One Piece, they hear that, oh, this is a trash anime. And it's like, oh, I don't have to do the work to be a part of this club. And it's like, oh yeah, I think it's this. I'm gonna use the same reasons that I've seen on the internet. The point is, I did not hear these opinions, and it was not popularized until this generation. That's why, even if there are older heads who are a part of that conversation, the opinion was not popularized until now. Back when I was growing up, even the intricacies that we did complain about, because there was shit that we complained about, the shit that she just brought up. It took hella long to get through one fight in one episode and did that. Yes, that's true. But that I can say the same thing about a whole lot of animes. A lot of animes have their one thing that is like, this is where they should do better, or this is where they do too much, or this and that. But it becomes why you love it so much, because it's a shared trauma that you like, bro. Remember when we was kids and we had to wait fucking 5 fucking episodes just for that one fight, and it's a bond that we share because we are a part of this club that new niggas are not a part of. So it's more annoying when we hear the shit, because it's like, nigga, you were there. If you were there and did you have the same impression that we did, then you would not feel this way.
Mona, before your trap card goes, viewers, do you have anything?
Yeah, please say something.
Do you have anything to contribute?
Y'all just bouncing off each other. I'm like, look at all these great pals. Like
this thing.
And you're showing me that I was definitely my school's bully. Because if you said anything to me, I'd be like, all right, I'm a manga reader. You want me to ruin your whole life? Like, shut up. I'm a bully. I'm an instigator. I would purposely trigger people. I'd be like, oh, I would walk around with like my little folder, notebook, whatever, with all the anime characters and everything, and just be like, oh, you see someone you like? Would you like to learn more? Like a fortune teller. And I'd be like, I could tell you their future. Because don't say nothing to me, okay? If I ask for a pen in class, hand me one. And if you don't, they died. They died.
Damn.
So I
don't have to think right now. Well, you know what? That character you like, they fucking died in episode 28.
Using spoilers as a weapon is crazy. But Con, to your point, nigga, so to agree, you said that you trauma bonded over a negative aspect of the show that you all agreed was a bad aspect of the show, correct? Is that what you said earlier?
Yep.
So how is it then a whole new generation is making up a whole negative talking point about a show that you... But you said the whole... Yes, you said it wasn't a popular opinion. No, nigga, you're wrong. You're saying it wasn't a popular opinion until now, but you're saying that entire generation bonded over a negative thing that you admitted was a bad part of the show.
Because our point is that you spoon-fed ass niggas have all these different new animes where it's like, I have so much where I can just watch and this to enjoy. Woo. We did not. So the little shit that we did have to complain about, we appreciate it in the long game. Y'all niggas get a little taste of that shit like, oh no. It's like the older generation of like, this is older brother versus younger brother. But we grew up and didn't have the same coddleness in life, and nah, nigga, you gotta get it out the mud and woo. And the older the people who are the oldest person and they siblings like, bro, remember when we had to do so and our little brother and sister just got to slide on by? Man, that shit is fucked up. And we bond over it. But y'all new niggas, any little inconvenience is just like, I don't like it. I don't do. And y'all spoiled. And it comes from a spoiled perspective, because even things that we can complain about, we accept it because we understand, like, oh no, this is a brand new thing that we are a part of, and we are appreciating it for what it is. Y'all niggas like, no, they should change it. No, I don't want to be a part of it. no, I don't like it. And we don't like that, nigga, because y'all just complain all the fucking time. The things that we complain about is like war stories, nigga. If you are a veteran or you are in the military, there are so much shit that you complain about, but you bond over it because you like, we were a part of something and it makes us stronger together that we can bond over that shared thing. We don't sit here and say that the whole thing was terrible based off these small ass inconveniences. Same thing with Dragon Ball Z. I don't say that the whole Dragon Ball Z is terrible based off of those small inconveniences, but y'all would take those small inconveniences and turn to be like, this was a trash anime. That's the difference.
So in watching Dragon Ball Z, I can honestly and truly say that Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, all of that is absolute trash. There are certain parts of it that were really good. Cell Saga. I liked some of the Buu Saga when Kid Buu showed up. The rest of that, garbage. But again, where you're talking about the opinions that are coming out in this new generation, and it wasn't really popularized, but it was a large group of people that said the exact same thing about Dragon Ball Z, about it being mid, about the plot, it being non-existent, about the character development being garbage. And it was people, and like, to say that you didn't really have any anime options depends on where you lived, because I was watching Neon Genesis, Evangelion, I was watching Aeon Flux, Rurouni Kenshin, Princess Mononoke, Crimson Pig, what was it, Jinro, Cowboy Bebop. Like, you had options, but it's what you decided to watch or what was allowed in your area. So if the only thing that you were able to see was via Toonami, that's what you saw. And so, of course, that is the conversation that is going to be surrounding in your area, because that is what's on. Where we were in the South.
Good old South.
In the South.
With an F, nigga. With an F, not a TH. In the South.
In the South, we had options. So Toonami, of course, but that's also where I end up watching Witchblade. I didn't even know Witchblade had an anime because I was reading Witchblade comic books. I didn't know it had a manga and an anime until I just so happened to stumble onto an anime channel at 3:00 in the morning when I was supposed to be asleep, and Half Naked Chick is on the screen. And I was like, huh? But the theme song was fire, so I stayed there. But like, I had multiple options. I didn't have to watch Dragon Ball Z. If I knew that they was about to take 6 episodes to get to the fight, I'm skipping 6 weeks of episodes and watching something else. But some people didn't have that option. So you also did not have that option of conversation. But it was a very popular opinion, at least where I was. And I don't know about Charlie, because Charlie was in Georgia. But where I was in Tennessee, it was a very popular conversation that Dragon Ball Z was ass.
Hey, Bealers.
Absolutely ass. Sailor Moon 2. Sailor Moon 2. I'm not even going to leave her out. Sailor Moon, ass. Dragon Ball Z, garbage. Naruto, mid. Like, but it was a group of people that were watching other things and being able to have those extensive conversations to where they could compare Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Inuyasha, Big O, Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop, all to each other, on top of watching other things, to where they could have these extensive conversations.
Go ahead, Lewis. I feel like you was going to say something. Charlie, was you just about to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something to Milas real quick. I want to let you know that the reason I play this is because this nigga is being very nasty. This whole issue that he has stems from the fact that this nigga didn't have the option to watch other shit. He's mad at a new generation because we can see some shit we don't like and have 30,000 other options to go watch and not have to watch this because it's the only thing out. You talked about, we trauma bonded over this shit and we had to watch it. We went through the trenches because this is all we had to watch. You're bitter because the new generation has options and we don't have to settle for things we don't like. You can admit you didn't like certain parts about Dragon Ball, but like to your point, you had to watch it. What you really did, you could have went and watched Power Rangers, some other shit.
No.
But you sound mad. You sound very bitter that the new generation can say, "Oh, we don't like this, so we're gonna go watch this that we think's better, and it's better than this thing." That's what I'm gathering from the whole conversation. That's what it seems to be the crux of the conversation. Because even for like back to the point when you brought up Otis and his love for mecha anime, his favorite anime of all time being Code Geass, which is where he got his name from. He thinks it's a 7. He thinks it's mid, but that's his favorite.
That nigga's a weirdo.
But that
weirdo.
I mean, but I can say
name it a 7. Nigga, you're a weirdo.
Sailor Moon, because Sailor Moon was my favorite anime for the longest fucking time. Sailor Moon was my absolute favorite. I grew up on Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon was my shit, and you couldn't tell me shit about it. And sitting here watching when Outlaw Star came out, my Outlaw Star.
Hold that thought. I'm not gonna cut you off. I'm not gonna cut you off. I just want to say also, I'm not. I'm adding to what she's saying. I'm gonna let her continue. The same thing she just said. Me and her both love Outlaw Star. That was one of our first conversations. That nigga Otis hates Outlaw Star. Hates it. Not even dislikes. He hates Outlaw Star.
He does. Right. He has expressed to me how much he hates
Outlaw Star. Bro. I know what I'm talking about, bro.
No, you're playing to my point, though.
Outlaw Star became my favorite, but when Sailor Moon was my favorite, I could honestly say at that point in time, Sailor Moon was a 6 for me, because first of all, that bitch whined too goddamn much. She was pissing me off. She whined for 2 weeks, and I said, "No, ma'am." To her fighting, slow as hell, like. And then it wasn't until, and she always had it. She always, in the first season, she always had to be fucking saved. Pissed me off. That show was a 6 to me. And then shut up. And then it became like a 7, 7.5 when the movies started coming out in between the shows. So like Sailor Moon R, Sailor Moon S, Sailor Moon Super R, Sailor Moon Super S, and shit like that. So it was like a 6.5, 7.5 for me, and it was still my favorite until Outlaw Star came out. And then after that, nothing has, even with Naruto being in my heart like it is, Naruto is not going to be at number 1 ever, because Outlaw Star is still sitting right there.